Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz. Whew. We so much has occurred. So let's get started from the top. It wouldn't be a Conversations with Taz if we didn't have a story about Elon Musk and who he done stepped in it at this point. Let's see. Elon Musk responds to Twitter's threat to sue him over reneging on deal with a meme. Because, that's mature. Elon Musk, meme aficionado and the world's richest person, issued his first public response to Twitter's vow that it will haul him into court to enforce the terms of his $44 billion buyout offer for the company. Musk, just after midnight Eastern Standard Time Sunday, tweeted a meme showing the celebrity CEO laughing at the latest turn of events. It focuses on the mega billionaire's central claim for bailing on the Twitter deal that, according to Musk, the company has stonewalled on providing evidence to back up his assertion that spam and fake accounts on Twitter make up less than 5% of the total daily active users. Now, we discussed this before, and we said that he was going to use that as a way to get out. Like, this was just a ploy. Amber Heard was all in the news for the defamation trial. It came out about him sexually harassing a flight attendant on SpaceX. This was a great move in his mind to detract. But, Urbane, come on. So... Urbane, come on. And Twitter has vowed to sue, according to BBC, Elon Musk over $44 billion takeover deal. It comes after Mr. Musk announced he was walking away from his proposed $44 billion takeover of Twitter on Friday. He claimed Twitter had not given information about the number of fake and spam accounts on the platform. Yeah, he also hasn't admitted how much money he's given Amber Heard to take care of her legal woes. I wonder if he's going to help her with the whole Australian thing. We shall see. But in even more troubling news, let's get updated on everything Ezra Miller real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Filthy time, let's get right into it. What is going on with Ezra Miller? Let's go. After being the emotional focal point in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was ultimately chosen for the 2022 Oscars cheer moment, Ezra Miller has been heading in a different direction. The actor, best known for their roles in the Fantastic Beasts franchise, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and their many appearances as The Flash, has started to wear out their celebrity welcome. On July 24, 2018, Miller dressed up as Toadette from Mario Kart and gave a bizarre red carpet interview answering every question in gibberish. On November 7, 2018, while discussing their gender with The Hollywood Reporter, Miller said, quote, "I barely identify as a human." Miller concluded the interview by asking the writer if they wanted to see his crossbow that his character used to kill several classmates in the film We Need to Talk About Kevin. On April 1st, 2020, a video was shared to social media showing Miller choking a woman and throwing her to the ground in a bar in Iceland. On March 27, 2022, Miller was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct and harassment after a physical confrontation at a karaoke bar. Miller became agitated while patrons started singing a rendition of Shallow from A Star Is Born. After yelling obscenities, grabbing the microphone from a woman, and lunging himself toward a man who was playing darts, Miller was arrested. On March 29, 2022, the couple who was living with Miller in a hostel filed a restraining order against the actor. This occurred after the incident at the bar when Miller came home and threatened the couple, saying, quote, "I will bury you and your wife." On April 19, 2022, Miller was again taken into custody in Hawaii for throwing a chair at a woman at a private party, leaving her with a cut on her forehead. On June 8, 2022, the parents of 18-year-old activist Gibson Iron Eyes accused Miller of grooming their child. On June 9, 2022, Gibson's parents say that Miller and Gibson are on the run and the courts have not been able to locate or serve the actor because their whereabouts are unknown. On June 15, 2022, Miller deleted their Instagram after posting memes alluding to the authorities' inability to locate them. On June June 16, 2022, the Daily Beast published a report after speaking to one of Miller's victims, which happened to be a 12-year-old child. Miller came into contact with the child and their mother due to their connection with the family's neighbor. After a heated interaction, Miller opened up their jacket, which had a gun, and said, quote, "Talking like that could get you into a really serious situation." After the altercation, Miller continued to harass the mother and child by saying the child was an elevated being and that they would like to guide them, while asking the mother if she would like to drink their blood. On June 30th, 2022, a woman named Nadia told Variety that Miller harassed her back in February of 2022 in Germany. After a consensual sexual encounter in 2020, the two of them were friends until she invited Miller over to her apartment in Berlin. After asking the actor not to smoke in her home, this set Miller off, ultimately leading her to asking Miller to leave at least 20 times, in which he would then insult her and her heritage. Miller stated that they were, quote, "a maker of planets," and continued to walk throughout the house, touching everything with tobacco and leaving tobacco leaves on the floor throughout the entire home. Now, what is next for Ezra Miller, and will The Flash debut in 2023? That is your film update.
Now I know and I understand that Ezra Miller identifies as a non-binary individual, but as a white male presenting individual, this is why he is able to keep getting off over and over and over again with a mere slap on the wrist. They have been escalating, they have been escalating for a while, as you can see in this small clip it. And the fact that they are now on the run or hidden and secluded with a two-spirit being from the native community, it should have never gotten to this point. It should have never gotten to this point. And I want to pose this question to all of the white women that are bombarding BIPOC women specifically, saying we need to unite, we need to unify. Where are you now? Where are you now? In much, much, much more pleasant news, let's see, hold on. I don't know why that doesn't want to pop up. Okay, here we go. Coming from Politico.com, 988 set for quiet launch in light of state federal concerns about crisis call spike. State health officials, unsure they have the money or staff to respond to an expected flood of calls to 988, the mental health hotline number, are tempering expectations just days ahead of its launch. It's a setback for the Biden administration, which had hoped the opening of the three-digit crisis line billed as 911 for mental health care would come with much fanfare. Instead, senior officials find themselves downplaying Saturday's launch as more of a transition. 911, when it was implemented, was an evolution, said Christina Mullins, commissioner of the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources Bureau for Behavioral Health. We're going to be in that similar evolution. Federal officials, including Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra, worry that most states are ill-prepared to meet the hotline's long-term needs, a failing that could hamper states' ability to quickly answer crisis calls with operators familiar with local resources. While the health agencies in recent months have dispatched new funds to help states expand their crisis networks, federal officials say few states have kept their end of the bargain and implemented long-term funding. The concerns come at a time when the Biden administration, Congress, and public health experts say mental health challenges are too often unaddressed and at least partly responsible for increases in drug overdoses, preteen suicides, and gun violence, among other maladies. Let's be real. Mental health crises are the biggest excuse law enforcement uses to kill minorities or people in general. They do not know how to handle it. This is not something new. This has been, just like I'm old enough to remember when 911 became a thing. These people had training over months. They were, why are you dropping the ball here? But I also wanted to let you know, and please share with your friends, starting July 16th of this year, 2022, you will be able to dial 988 from coast to coast for a mental health crisis, whether it is yourself, a loved one, a friend. Just please take note of the number. Yeah, I know many people who have had weapons drawn on them because of a mental health crisis. Because law enforcement is taught that everything and everyone except for them is a threat, which is a whole nother can of worms to unpack. But another critical story that has been in the news has been the uncovering of an arrest warrant that was never served for Carolyn Bryant. Here's a little bit of history, and we're going to come back and talk about this.
Now, this disgusting picture right here is of J.W. Milam and his wife Juanita and Carolyn and Roy Bryant. Carolyn Bryant is the woman who accused Emmett Till of making lewd advances at her and wolf whistling at her, and Milam and Bryant are the two men who murdered Emmett, but in this picture are smiling because they've just been acquitted. Carolyn was allegedly in the car with Milam and Bryant when they kidnapped Emmett and identified him. But recently, a 1955 arrest warrant for Carolyn was found in an old file, and many people, including Emmett's family, are wanting justice to be served now, even though it's 67 years later. But since Carolyn Bryant has been back in the news, I've seen several videos on TikTok of people saying, oh my God, this is proof of the Mandela effect, because I remember her dying years ago and that she confessed on her deathbed that Emmett didn't do anything to her. But that's not correct. Juanita died back in 2014, Milam's wife, and she didn't make any kind of confession, but Carolyn did in 2007. She claimed that it wasn't true that Emmett made any physical or verbal advances towards her. This was told to Timothy Tyson, the author of the book The Blood of Emmett Till, when he interviewed Bryant for the book. When this information came out, people tried to press charges. Emmett's family wanted to press charges. People came forward, and she quickly recanted and said she never said it. But since Dave Chappelle also made a claim in one of his shows that Carolyn died and confessed on her deathbed, the two stories have gotten kind of mixed up with Juanita, and people have run with it. But Carolyn Bryant is still very much alive and living in North Carolina. So, even though she's in her 80s, this is a recent-ish picture of her, and it's been 67 years, doesn't matter. Emmett Till deserves justice, and Carolyn Bryant deserves to face consequences for her actions, which led to the murder of this 14-year-old boy.
And for everyone that's saying, oh, she's now in her 80s, you should let it go, it's been decades, y'all don't have the same energy when those who participated in the Holocaust are hauled into the court and prosecuted regardless of their age, regardless of their medical status, regardless of their citizenship. You need to ask yourself about your internalized biases towards Black people. This woman was even able to remarry. Now, the one caveat that for a while gave us a little bit of solace is the fact that she now has Black family members who have come out publicly on social media and said, look, unfortunately, I am related to her. She's done a good job of hiding from us because she knows that we will out her. But stop with this. Oh, Carolyn Bryant is in her 80s. It's been decades. No, if you can still haul in folks involved with the Holocaust and prosecute them and still actively search for them to bring justice to the Jewish community, why can't you do that for every other community. Stop with this, it's been so long, get over it stuff. That is just implicit internalized bias and utter sheer racism towards Black people. Because if it was your family member that before they even had a chance at truly experiencing life, for them to be tortured, not just murdered, tortured, would you give a damn? And keep that same energy as we move into this next story.
Police killed 14-year-old Brett Rosenau during a SWAT raid in Albuquerque last Wednesday night when they threw flashbangs into a house he was visiting, setting it on fire. After saying they didn't know what caused his death, they have now confirmed he died of smoke inhalation. The 14-year-old boy, who was not the target of the raid, was visiting a teenage friend who lived at the house to borrow a bike when police smashed down the house's doors looking for another person who was wanted on 2 warrants for non-violent offenses. They also smashed the house's windows. They knew the 14-year-old was in the house with the other young man who was the target of the warrants and who suffered from burn injuries. In fact, the specific purpose of throwing in the grenades was to force them out of the house. Afterwards, police left Brett lying dead and uncovered on the street for hours. They police us the same way they militarize non-white countries.
There's no lies detected there. And the thing about it is, what you need to realize is that the warrants for the individual that resided at that house were nonviolent. There was no reason to come in that way. They were nonviolent offenses. A simple knock at the door, hey, we're here to serve this warrant. Why did you need SWAT for nonviolent offenses? Why did you need flashbangs for nonviolent offenses? And you throw in a flashbang because you know people are in the house. And the whole point of the flashbang is to draw them out. You just don't care. You don't see certain people as human. But you know who the vast majority, well, I'm sorry, not the vast majority, the minority that is in power currently within the United States see as human? A freaking fetus. And here are the lengths that they're willing to go through to save a fetus, but fuck over a child.
A right-wing evangelical activist was caught on a hot mic claiming that she prays with Supreme Court justices inside the chambers. Directly following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, Connie IRL, a YouTuber, interviewed Peggy Nynaber. Peggy is Liberty Counsel's executive director of DC Ministry and the vice president of Faith and Liberty. Connie asked, "You actually pray with the Supreme Court justices?" "I do," says Peggy. "They'll pray with us, those that like us to pray with them." She did admit some justices don't want to pray with her. But then when Connie IRL asked, "You do this in their homes or like where?" she said, "We actually go in there," meaning the chambers. Now, Liberty Counsel was cited in the amicus brief that overturned Roe v. Wade. They've had a couple big wins for religious freedom over the last month. And the guy who's the head of Liberty Counsel is like, "This never happened. I don't know why she would say that," because that's obviously a huge conflict of interest. Peggy now claims that she doesn't recall making those statements. This is not the last we'll hear of this.
Now, it has been noted that these same groups of people have wined and dined, taken certain members of SCOTUS out to dinner, use manipulative or persuasive jargon regarding abortion rights, etc. I wonder if that's why Kavanaugh was so upset his dinner got interrupted. Not so much that there were protesters with signs and drums and a megaphone. Who knows? But let's get into the story of today, January 6th. Let's just run through all of these. I'll see you on the flip side.
I think we need to quit mincing words and just talk about truths. And what it was going to be was an armed revolution. I mean, people died that day. Law enforcement officers died this day. There was a gallows set up in front of the Capitol. This could have been the spark that started a new civil war, and no one would have won there. That would have been good for no one.
President Trump is a 76-year-old man. He is not an impressionable child. Just like everyone else in our country, he is responsible for his own actions and his own choices. As our investigation has shown, Donald Trump had access to more detailed and specific information showing that the election was not actually stolen than almost any other American. And he was told this over and over again. No rational or sane man in his position could disregard that information and reach the opposite conclusion. And Donald Trump cannot escape responsibility by being willfully blind.
Liz Cheney just dropped an absolute bombshell at the end of today's January 6th hearings, saying that after the previous hearing, they caught Donald Trump trying to tamper with a witness, and they sent this evidence straight to the Department of Justice. Watch this.
And one more item. After our last hearing, President Trump tried to call a witness in our investigation, a witness you have not yet seen in these hearings. That person declined to answer or respond to President Trump's call and instead alerted their lawyer to the call. Their lawyer alerted us, and this committee has supplied that information to the Department of Justice. Let me say one more time, we will take any effort to influence witness testimony very seriously. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The Capitol.
You know, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
After the president's speech, as you're marching down to the Capitol, how did you feel?
I was, I'm angry, after everything that was basically said in the speech. A lot of the stuff he said, he already put out in tweets. I've already seen it and heard it before. So, I was already worked up, and so were most of the people there.
So why did you decide to march to the Capitol?
They were already riled up. They already heard what they wanted to hear. Even a self-proclaimed, admitted propagandist, meaning he knew he was lying to the people. He knew he was helping incite people and rile them up. Even said, you know what, let's stop mincing words. Let's just get to the truth of the matter. Trump himself knows what he did. He knows what he was trying to accomplish. This is why he's tried to get people to pay for witnesses' attorneys to make them beholden unto him. He's trying to call future witnesses, everything else. And also keep in mind, Bannon thought that, if I finally stop ignoring this, excuse me, this subpoena and finally show up, they won't prosecute me the way that they said they would, or maybe they'll give me a little bit more time. They pulled a Uno reverse, like, nope, it's still going off same time, same way, same place, be there. You shouldn't have played with us in the first place. So all of these staunch Trumplicans and MAGA hats and everything else, it was not a peaceful protest. They knew ahead of time going in what they wanted to do. You cannot, on a whim, erect gallows. You cannot, on a whim, have interior photos and know which doors are going to be unlocked at what time. Laptops were stolen. Pictures of documents from the congressional floor were taken. This was a plan. And this goes to show how primal and savage racist, cishet white people are. They are the violence that plagues this country and others. This is why they try to smoke and mirrors the rest of us so very much. Because if you're focused on being afraid of me walking into a store, walking down the street, you're not going to pay attention to Becky Sue, Kyle, and Thomas, who are picking your pocket and slicing your throats. But also today, Hallie got destroyed and owned by, yet again, a Black woman. Pay attention.
It's more enjoyable than watching Josh Hawley get destroyed.
You've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important.
Because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you're denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you? Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Ms.
The microaggressions, the condescending tone, the trying to have a gotcha moment and speak over a Black woman. It is amazing the minuscule amount of respect the most educated group within the United States receives on a second by second basis in this country. And I wish I could just say that it was men like him. I wish I could just say that it was just straight faux Protestant men. But no. Because believe it or not, you will receive it from friends. You will receive it from family. You will receive it from a stranger on the street. Because it can't fathom that you would have the intellect to school them on something. You're just told that you're wrong or you're not always right. Nobody said anybody was always right. But there's no reason to twist and mince words. And that's exactly what he was attempting to do. No different, excuse me, what they've done to the Honorable Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But coming from thehillreporter.com, Lauren Boebert, my husband only exposed himself at bowling alley because bartender begged him. It can be said that there has never been another congresswoman quite like Lauren Boebert. The MAGA superstar has been a prominent member of the House despite a history of brushes with the law and boldly racist statements. Her husband, Jason, has also had brushes with the law. In 2004, he was arrested for exposing his genitals at a bowling alley. In her, in her new book, Jesus, is this a scratch and sniff pop-up book? Anywho, Boebert writes that he only did it because he was begged to. My American Life, the GOP rep, explains. The two of them Jason and her stepfather went to the Rifle Bowling Alley and got to chatting over drinks. The female bartender flirted with Jason, having heard previously from his friends what a catch he'd be. They even teased her by saying he'd gotten a great tattoo in a private area, which made her curious. So she pressed Jason to show it to her right there at the bar. He ignored her and was embarrassed she was doing it in front of my stepfather. She wouldn't stop. He couldn't have been that embarrassed if he went on to do it. And you couldn't have been that embarrassed if you let the conversation go there. This retelling ignores some key facts about the incident. First of all, Boebert, then 17, was at the bowling alley with the two men. Secondly, the women who police claimed were victims of Jason Boebert told a very different story. According to the police report, one victim said Jason Boebert came up behind us and pulled his penis out of his pants. A second victim told the same story. I wish I could say I'm surprised by the lack of energy and effort put into this cover story, but I am not, because this is one of the most overly used tools of white supremacy, stating something that makes positively no sense. And anyone with good sense is like, who would believe that? You would be amazed at how many people believe it, because they need to. They need to, because somebody has become their hero, and they need to keep them at that hero status because that person is saying and or doing all the things they wish they would do. And she is nothing but just drama filled from top to bottom. The vast majority of what comes out of her mouth is racist. 100% of what comes out of her mouth is incorrect. Like, people want to give literacy test in order to vote over the years. But why is there not a test to run for office? And the candidacy pool is slim pickings. It's got pee and poop in it at this point. There are candidates from certain states that have been caught during gubernatorial debates saying, and I quote, "I haven't been around this many women since I was at a baby shower." What does that have to do with politics? You have Herschel Walker walking around not understanding energy nor the Green New Deal. Like, but this is supposed to make America great again? I don't know when America was great, but it seems like racist white people think America was great when stupid, uneducated, racist white people were the only ones in control and the only ones with rights. Oh, that's right. Stupid, uneducated, racist, pretending to be Christian white men. And we're going to have more about the whole Christian nationalist thing that's going on tomorrow. I've got a little bit more research to do on that after a video and an article was sent to me. So I'm going to look into it a little bit more before we dig into that. Also, quick note, there is a new Tastastic Tuesday audio podcast up. It should be the video right before this, or you can click the link in the bio to get to it. Once again, it's called Tastastic Tuesday. And the logo for that is in this corner. Whew. Here we go.
This is Jeffrey Tucker, and he went on a tour at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And he's upset because they talked about slavery during the tour.
Today, all men are created equal and all this kind of stuff. A great architect, scholar, Thomas Jefferson. And instead I got, exactly the opposite. Debunking his history, his reputation, putting him down, demoralizing everybody on my tour. It was just sad, sadly predictable too these days. I just thought that maybe Monticello would be protected from this disease of wokeism.
And this is the website for Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And on this website, it talks about the tours and what you will see when you go on these tours and what you will hear when you go on these tours. On On that tour and on the website, you learn about Jefferson's 3 greatest achievements. You're going to learn about a timeline, the public and private events of Thomas Jefferson's life. And you're also going to learn about slavery at Monticello during that tour. You're going to learn that he had over 600 slaves in his lifetime, if not more. And you're going to learn about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Yes, Thomas Jefferson had kids with one of his slaves. He doesn't want to hear that Thomas Jefferson wrote, "All men are created equal," but he still owned slaves and never freed a vast majority of the people he held in bondage. The truth hurts. He doesn't want to know that the people that were in charge of Thomas Jefferson's slaves at Monticello had a reputation for violence and cruelty. He doesn't want to know that, because God forbid it make him feel uncomfortable. He was made to feel uncomfortable that day. He wanted that history whitewashed, so he wasn't made to feel uncomfortable. I guess Jeffrey Tucker here thought that he was going to go on a tour at Thomas Jefferson's plantation, and not hear anything about slavery.
And his recount is not unfamiliar with white people in the United States touring plantations. It's because of the Daughters of the Confederacy who infantilized the antebellum period. If you think I'm joking, go to these plantation sites, go to their Yelp reviews and see the complaints. See the complaints, because nobody wants to talk about the fact that Thomas Jefferson was broke as shit. He took to breeding slaves in order to try to make ends meet. He simultaneously referred to them as his friends while raping, grooming, molesting, beating, killing them, not viewing them as human at all. His own family wasn't there for pinnacle moments in his life, but he forced enslaved people to be there and be by his side, and made it seem so whimsical and so loving, as if it was a mutual friendship. When he died surrounded by slaves, not by their choice. He forced Sally Hemings to be with him because she had a way to get out during a trip to France. Nobody disparaged his character. They're looking at being woke as being hurtful to them because they don't want to know actual history. They want to keep these infantilized ideals so that they can hold on to racial tropes, so that they can believe that their ancestors and themselves pulled themselves up from the bootstraps, when no, they didn't. They ripped the bootstraps off of millions of people and climbed upon their backs to reach the higher rungs of the fabric that is capitalism within the United States. That's all they did. That's all they did. We're going to round out tonight. It's going to be a short show with some tools in case you're out in a public place and there happens to be a mass shooting. It saddens me that I must find this content for you, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till tomorrow.
You're at an outdoor festival and shots ring out. This is the safest place to hide on a car. Around the front of the car behind the engine block. Even better if you can get behind the metal part of the wheel. Everywhere else on the vehicle is hit and miss on stopping rounds. In a pinch, you can get behind the rear wheel. Just know it's not a lot of cover. I've had some people say they'll get down and hide under the car. Most people think when bullets hit, they go at a 45-degree angle up in the opposite direction. Bullets act more like skipping. Rounds usually hit flat surfaces and then continue on perpendicular. That's one of the reasons you don't want to peek over the hood of the car. Hopefully that's all information you'll never need.